So let me first start off by giving you a summary by what Mixpanels do. So in a nutshell, Mixpanel provides your team with event and user-based analysis to tackle a few things. One, it helps you to better improve your product and platform by understanding the different touch points of the users. Two, it can also help you better strategize your engagement by understanding your users' behavior and the optimum time to engage them. Last but not least, what it helps you to also do is really gain both product and user analysis across your different platforms, ranging from your web, your mobile, your server side, and so on and so forth. So Mixpanel can benefit a wide variety of stakeholders. Mainly, it can benefit product managers, growth marketers, business analysts, and so on and so forth. So for today's webinar, I would like to use a fintech scenario to talk through this. So let's imagine we have a mobile wallet company, and I would like to go through the various questions that the product managers would love to get this answered. So the few things they would like to better know is how the users are navigating their application. Secondly, and this is very important in the fintech industry, it's where are the users dropping off in the registration and verification process. Third, how long does it really take your users to get activated to perform the very first key action in the app? Can your different teams look at the various KPIs in one single view in one platform? Next, we have what is the monthly active users compared to this month against the last month. A few more things we'd like to cover is also how often your users are transacting on your platform, and also what are the top features being utilized on the app. So let me go through Mixpanel to kickstart this. So the first thing I would like to go through is how Mixpanel collects this information for you to run your analysis. So where I'm at now is actually a single user profile view. So if I bring your attention to the left-hand side, we can see that we have Lydian Anderson with the user ID. And what you can see here are the properties or the user profile of this particular user. So things like email address, mobile number, the geolocation, the names, all this can be collected on Mixpanel. And on the right-hand side is actually a list of all the events being performed by Lillian to help us keep track of all this information. Let me drill down into one of these events. As you can see here, all these events contain information of this particular event, such as the different properties of the country the user is performing this event, the amount being sent, and so on and so forth. With that, Mixpanel is able to aggregate all this data for your analysis. So when we actually talk about the fintech industry, there are a few key metrics I would like to first go through with you before I begin to show how we are able to create these different reports. And the first dashboard I would like to go through is actually the customer lifecycle. So when we look in the mobile wallet space or the fintech space, a user always goes through the process being a new user, being verified, getting activated, and the churn process. So what Mixpanel allows you to do is build a dashboard that gives you very good information on where your users are at the different stages. So what you can see here is we are able to define who are your non-activated users, how many of the users have been activated, how many of them are active users, and how many of them are actually inactive. So what I can do is to analyze the trends over a period of time and look at the key metrics that could be potentially very important to customers in that particular stage. So if we look at users who are non-active, what are the challenges that product managers face is to understand how long does it really take new users to be verified and be completely registered. Mixpanel is able to provide you with this information for your analysis. Subsequently, the next challenge we always face is how long would it take a users when they actually get successfully verified to perform the very first key action. The reason this is so important is because in the fintech space, there is always a complex decision-making process to perform the very first financial service app. So it can be a scan and pay and top up a wallet. And because this involves money, it usually involves a period of time. And by understanding the time it takes to convert, this can help us build up a better onboarding process to reduce this verification to activation time. Next, when we talk about active users, what is important to understand is the active number of usages or actions that is performed by your active user group. So as we provide more and more services within the mobile payment app, we want to make sure your users are performing a wider range of these activities on your platform. Last but not least, in every app, there is always a problem about churn and inactive customers. So what is really important to understand is, out of all these churn customers, are your customers churning from the non-activated process, or are they churning from the active user group? So by defining all this matrix and by understanding how your users and where your users are, this would result in better planning for your product experience and understanding your product better. So now let's go through a few product KPIs. And what Mixpanel is able to help you better analyze is the attribution of your app installs. What are the top features being used on your payment app? So it could be a top-up wallet, scan and pay, link bank account, and so on and so forth. Furthermore, it can help you understand all the granular details such as the cash withdrawal methods. Are your customers paying using the scan and pay on which merchant types, industries, and how and when your users are most likely to use your app by the day and by time. Last but not least, a little bit more on the user matrix before I go on to show you how we build these reports, is that Mixpanel is also able to allow you to easily analyze your MAUs, weekly active users, the different funnels that could matter in the fintech industry, such as the very complex and lengthy registration process, different loan payments, and also the total transaction counts. So for now, let's first drill into the key process of better understanding your users with Mixpanel flows. So Mixpanel flows is a very first step to really help you understand your user's digital journey. So for example, what you might want to understand is how your new users utilize your app after they complete the registration process. So very easily, I can kickstart with something called the registration process event, and I can add steps afterwards to analyze, to understand your users' most natural onboarding flow. So what I can see is that when the users complete the registration, they might just log out, open the app again, top up the wallet, perform a scan and pay, open the app again, and so on and so forth. So by using flows, this gives you a very good idea on how your new users tend to use your app without any onboarding flows, just for example. So with that sort of analysis, you are able to run something called a step-by-step analysis to better understand the key drop-off points. So the next thing I'd like to go through with you is Mixpanel flows. And this is where you are able to create a series of step-up events to better understand where your users are dropping off. So for this example, let me use an example of the registration process because it is a very complex funnel in the fintech industry, because it requires sending of the PIN, one-time PIN, uploading the ID, and so on and so forth. So first thing first, by setting this series of steps, what Mixpanel does is to give you an overall conversion rate of how your users are flowing through this funnel. And with that, you are able to potentially define or understand where are the key drop-off points and issues your users are facing. So for example, if we look at this funnel, we can see that we have actually a huge drop-off rate when it comes to the verification of the one-time password. So there are a few reasons that this could happen. Could it be users creating multiple accounts? Could there be bots? Are users not receiving the one-time PIN? And by understanding this better, we can further drill down into the deeper details. So if you look at this particular step, Mixpanel provides you with information such as the time your user takes between each step and also the conversion rates to give you better details on the potential bottlenecks that your users are facing. So let's say if you feel that your users are spending way too much time for the one-time PIN, this could be a reason that there could be a problem in the one-time PIN verification process, which you might need to look inside to. So that being said, you can definitely define the different conversion windows. So for here, we are looking at the 30-day conversion period. However, if let's say you want to really understand how many of the users convert within a single session, you can easily change this conversion window into one session just like this. So this provides you a very flexible way to really understand your user conversion rates within a funnel. With that being said, you can also further break down by different user segments and event properties. So one example, we can actually break down by the user platform that your user is using, so we can better understand conversion rates between iOS and Android. That being said, we can also break down by your campaign source to see which of this campaign is driving better conversions to acquire customers to install your app to go through this funnel. So now, with all this, there are a few more things I would like to better understand in the registration funnel in the fintech industry. One way to better analyze is to understand the distribution and how long your users take in terms of the conversion from step 1 to step 6. So let's take a look at the granular basis on the minute interval. So what we can see here is during this registration funnel, we can see that we have around 30% of my users, they complete this process within 10 minutes. However, what is also important to take note is that we still do have a huge number of users that is completing way longer than my expected time for this registration process. So with this sort of insights, we can actually try to build an onboarding funnel to guide the users through, or we might want to take some time to analyze these complex steps and potentially shift them out of this registration process to get the customers to fuel up after they complete the registration. So this is how we are able to make use of all these insights to actually build a better product within your platform. So moving on next, what we have is the insights report, which allows you to slice and dice the various kinds of different reports. So now let's first start with something easy. So let's say, in the fintech industry, you want to understand who are your monthly active users. And usually, we can define monthly active users by certain key actions. So what you're able to do is you're able to create a custom event such as, we call this retain actions. And you can assign different key events that you can consider your users to be retained. So this could be scan and pay. It could be the topping up of wallet. It could be paying of bills. And we can actually save it as something called retain actions. With that, you are able to easily calculate your MAU by these key actions by just saying, show me all users, monthly active users. And we can easily set different time periods and compare it to the past. So that is how you are able to easily run an MAU report within Mixpanel. Apart from that, there are a few more things we might want to analyze. So one of the things we might want to know is what kind of merchants your users are using Scan and Pay for. Is it for entertainment? Is it for F&B? So with that, by setting this first key event, you're able to break down by the category and also breaking down by the merchant names. So let me first change this into the bar report. That's how you're able to analyze this sort of details. So by knowing for the scan and pay feature, which industry or merchant types your users are using at most, this helps you to actually source out different merchant as partners to onboard your platform as a partner. So this is how we are able to use insights to slice and dice the various kinds of reports. A few more things I'd like to show you, because this is very powerful, is that you are also able to understand the distribution of the usage of certain features. And in Mixpanel, it's extremely easy to do. And all you need to do is say, show me total bill user defined by the distribution. And you are able to understand how many times or how many users actually perform this particular action 0 to 2 times. How many users perform scan and pay 2 to 4 times, and so on and so forth. So in this way, you are able to run a wide variety of reports you can do within Mixpanel Insights. So when we look at this, the next thing we want to also understand is, how the release of new features on my product affects certain key actions. So Mixpanel has a report called the impact report to help you measure that sort of cause and effect. So for example, one of the key challenge is that you want to make users or provide an easy way for users to top up the wallet without the need to always enter the credit card details or the banking details. So let's assume that you launch something called the linking of bank account, such that users can easily top up wallets through their banking services. So with that, what you might want to see is that with the release of the bank account link feature, are my users actually topping up the mobile wallet more often? So with data science, Mixpanel actually summarizes this report into a very easy to understand language. First thing first, we tell you who are your adopters of this new feature. So right here, we can see that we have 75% of my users that have adopted this linking on bank account. However, what is really important to measure is that despite the launch of this new feature, it might not necessarily lead to users performing the action you wanted to perform. So Mixpanel summarizes this with a very easy to understand sentence under this impact category. So what we can see here is that with the launch of the link bank account feature, this definitely attributed to a positive increase of 300% of events of top-up wallet per day. So with that, we know that the investment of time into this new feature is really leading to a positive change on your key KPI. Last but not least, what I would like to cover is also the retention analysis. And in retention analysis, we usually measure users being retained by key actions. So remember the part where we talk about building a custom event to allocate certain key actions? This can also be used in this report. So what we might want to see for users who perform any main app actions for the very first time, what we want to understand is, are these users or first-time users coming back to perform the same key action over a period of time? So let's take a look at a 3-month period on the weekly basis. So what we can see here is that for users or first-time users, the average retention rate for first-time users dies down to around 16 to 15% after the 10-week. So with that, you are able to tap into retention reports to better understand your users' behavior.